G2 with more beyond them. Though, let's see which maps we're going to be playing on. Again, best of 3 series followed by best of 5. So let's go through our 7 map pool to see which 3 maps we're going to be playing on in this series. Potentially all 3. We'll see how it goes. VP banning Theme Park first. We've seen how uncomfortable they can be on it. Now G2 are very flexible. They'll remove Oregon, a map that classically works well for VP. VP will pick out Clubhouse as map 1. That is a very interesting pick. Kafe Dostoyevsky for G2 as the second one. And I'll get both of your opinions on that very quickly in a moment here. Coastline ban for VP, understandable given G2's history. Then Villa taken away by G2 to leave us with a classic Consulate as decider. Overall, Jess, you look at this. Who has an advantage, if anyone, in the pick ban and why?
Surprisingly, I actually think G2 has an advantage here. I'm just looking at some of the map wins and losses here from VP. Mind you, again, got to state it, close maps from VP on the ones that have lost. So I'm just simply looking at wins, draws, and losses. The loss column doesn't really take in the context that they were super close maps. So technically with them picking a Clubhouse, I sort of thought to myself, oh, my stats, they've got a 25% win rate. That doesn't look very good, does it? How close were they? Pretty close. So maybe they've felt that they've ironed out the issues. That's going to be a really good map for them. But recently, a lot of people have been winning the other team's map pick.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know. I think that statistically we have over 70% of map wins going to the opposite team. So
I look at it and just think with Clubhouse, like I always think of Virtus.Pro on that back in the day, one of EUL Stage 1. They just won the EOC, the European Open Clash, and everyone in the scene and out of it was like, man, this is the Dark Horse team, you've got to watch them.
Yeah.
And they got utterly ruined by Empire on that map, and that will forever stick with me. But for them, when you look at the stats, I agree, it completely stacks up against G2. It is G2's most banned map. Cafe kind of sits in the middle where both teams have done okay on it. However, G2 have beaten them twice there. And Constant for me is the wild card where both teams have done okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure G2 also beat them there at some point. But it kind of sits as it's the ultimate kind of best of 3 decider map, I think, where both teams are okay on it, but the first 2 are more weighted. But as Jess says, at the minute, 70% of teams are winning the other team's map picks. So you just don't know what's going to come out of it.
Oh, there you go.
It is as 50, and as Jess was saying, numbers on their own don't tell you the whole story because both teams might have lost a map, but it went 7-5, for example, and you just can't look at a pure win or loss rate.
I agree.
There's a lot of variability. I think even more interesting would be to talk about how many rounds on average are they winning. The round differential is definitely a more telling statistic in this case, but this just gives you a rough idea of the expectations. So let's talk about map specific. What are the expectations then on map 1? You know, starting sides, if we have that information, that is, and what are the expectations operator-wise, strategy-wise, sites, and the such, Jess?
I mean, for the most part, VP, especially on Clubhouse, they look to get rid of operators like Thatcher. They don't like Shields. They don't like Monty. I'm not sure what that's about commonly. It used to be that they used to get rid of Capital a lot, and that was just Russian teams as a whole. Nowadays, they're getting a little bit more streamlined into just getting rid of Thatcher, maybe a Monty here and there. Defensively, ban-wise, I don't know what to expect from them. There's a lot of my bans. There's a lot of Valkyrie bans that are clocked up from VP. Whether or not that translates over to Clubhouse specifically, I'm not sure because you don't necessarily need to ban a mirror, for example. So there's a lot more freedom for bans for them here.
I'll be really curious to see if we see a Maestro ban come out of G2. They banned it against Na'Vi. They banned it against BDS on this map. They just really don't like dealing with that intel gain that comes out. Of course, you might argue, yeah, well, then there's a Valkyrie. Well, as we all know, Evil Eyes are a little bit harder to destroy given the fact they're bulletproof. So maybe for them, it's just trying to remove it in the utility meta. That's the most important thing to remember is we are looking at a different meta right now compared to what we did in EUL Stage 2. It's not the 20-second meta. It's not about utility. There's much more freedom. Clubhouse Odd Wager is still one of those maps that's a little more static. It does force quite a utility-based playstyle, but nowhere near as heavily as it once did. I think we might see something a little bit different coming out of the 2 teams here.
Actually,
some target bans would be good, actually. I'll be honest. The target bans would be nice.
So like what that jumps out for me as a target ban, like an operator specifically on a map, say like, you know, try to take away Jaeger or something like it, something that Zeronic right now would be sitting and clapping for just thinking about that idea. But is this something that G2 can contemplate as well as a Maestro ban, as you talked about only a couple minutes ago, potentially?
They play a lot of Maestro, or at least VP. Like if you're G2, they play a lot of Maestro on this map specifically. Probably another operator that G2 could get rid of if they don't want to play it, which is a very strong possibility that VP use a lot of, and we saw this throughout stage 2, majors, etc., is the Go-Yo. Clubhouse, especially top floor and bottom floor, and when I'm talking about top floor, sorry, CCTV and the bottom floor of Armor. Actually, there's like pretty much every site. You can run Go-Yos really well in really strategic spots. It's something that if you get rid of, it forces them to have to bring operators with shields. Well, Mai no longer has the shield. Okay, so who brings the shield? Okay, bring a smoke.
Yep.
Someone has to swap over. Things are switching around because the person who usually plays mute now plays the smoke. That's good. That forces a mixture of composition that is going to stress them out. I like that. So if they get rid of the Go-Yo, I wouldn't be surprised. But even more so, way more plays of Maestro, way more plays, about 8 or so rounds more plays of Maestro. So that would be cool too. I think Des has got something here.
I want a Zofia ban. I really want to just see a Zofia ban. Just throw it out there. Make Milan uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He has been the rookie of the split, is the way we described it. The
True.
guy's been a god. So you've got Milan, you've got Razkan, you've got Pasha. Make one of them uncomfortable. Put Milan on something that he's not always going to be used to. Leave him with just the Ash and then see what happens. That's how you really light a firework in this fixture, I think.
That is a very good point here. Now, Thatcher ban is kind of expected all the time on Clubhouse. I don't think that's going to be changing. But what about any other Heartbeach essentials that might be taken away? Because you have flexibility.
I actually think they'll get rid of Maverick.
Yeah.
And Maverick or Ace. I actually think either or.
Makes sense.
I actually surprisingly think, and I don't know why, but the one time I watched G2 try and utilize Thatcher on Clubhouse, it was a horrific showing of how to use Thatcher. And I actually think it's one of the most basic operators to use.
I'm going to argue your point because I disagree completely the other way. I remember them using Thatchers on the roof.
You want to drama
Yes.
here?
They threw it, I think against Vitality, they
which
used them on the
operator?
roof.
Which
Thatcher.
player?
I don't know which player it was,
player?
but I know they were disabling
When
gadgets
I
from the
watched
roof above.
Yes, when I watched Uno play Thatcher one time with G2, it was not a great showing at all.
Yes,
and in fact,
yes.
he had to use all of them on one wall.
Yes.
So
I can't say this about him because
go.
I've been really kind to him. I was going to say, have you watched Uno play this year? But that felt like really bad flame.
Oh, no.
They've had a real volatile year. It hasn't been kind. I was going to say, choosing out a player that hasn't had the best year so far and trying to say, therefore, G2 can't use Thatcher properly feels a little bit cruel.
It's like
Des
talking.
said
It's
it,
like
not
trash
me. I don't
talking
wanna
Haps
take-
Mike. You can't do that.
I know.
The thing is, I'm always going to be the first to say a player isn't bad just because their stats aren't like a 2.0 KD and entry
Or if
tracking
they don't
every
know
single round.
callouts, of course you know that yourself.
Or that too. I'm not a player, therefore it's okay. But the way it looks, I think, for them is like, okay, maybe there's one or two bad cases where they've misused it in a round, but I think in the rounds that we have seen them use it well, they have completely shattered defenses with plays like that. Getting around ADSs, it's been incredible. If they can do the same thing again today and come up with some creative ideas against Virtus.Pro, you might make these new boys a little more uncomfortable than they'd like to be.
So what's expectations site-wise, Ro? We've seen a lot of CCTV being played, a lot of church being played. There are a lot of gym bed rotation. Like, what do you expect as first sites being taken? The majority of them. Who has an advantage on which side's attacking into it?
I mean, VP, because they love the Maestro so much, and which is making me think about the Maestro ban here. What Des is saying is they love bottom floor. The Maestro camps, the Evil Eyes that they have for the bottom floor setup is quite good. That's why they play at a predominant amount. I think their second side is Master and Gym, surprisingly enough. So I would expect Gym and bottom floor predominantly, but maybe they worked on their CCTV. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, they like the bottom floor, and Gym works well.
Has anyone worked on bar stock?
Someone
Not
has
in a
to.
long time.
It's
I think
just the doorway to stock that's the problem.
There's the occasional team in LATAM that tries and might pull it off once or twice, and then we never see it again for like a year. It's incredible.
I mean,
it's not going to be a thing.
So who takes map one, given all of this? Des, G2, VP, very quickly, just name it, so our game is almost ready.
VP.
Jessica?
Oh, G2.
Oh, whoa, you guys have swapped around. All right.
I know.
I like how this is going then. Des, Jess, thank you so much for your input. I am not confused at all after all of this. Let's see how it all goes to toss it on to our good friends and commentators for this game. Gio, Dev, I hope you're ready. I know you are. It's Clubhouse and it's Virtus.Pro VG2. Wow.
Welcome, guys. We're here. We finally have the game. It is the last semi-final for the EU finals. We're going to find out who will be joining BDS in that grand final. I'm stoked. Gio, how you feeling for this one?
I'm actually really ready for this. These are two teams that have had a lot of conversation surrounding them this past year. G2, former glory, kind of slipped a bit, whereas Virtus.Pro have been impressing more and more as time has gone on and found themselves in a lot of those events and here in the finals at the end of the 2020 season. So I'm stoked to actually see who is going to come out on top here.
Indeed, that's really the story that we're telling here. G2, everybody knows them. They've been around for such a long time. They've established a legacy, but their new roster is yet to prove themselves. Virtus.Pro have been hungry. They've been chasing it for so long. But can they hack it with the big boys? Could it be their first grand final? Let's find out. It all starts on Clubhouse. Virtus.Pro picked it. We'll see whether they can back up.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on the last however many months of play from these two teams, Virtus.Pro have a 20% win rate out of 5 times played on this map. That's not necessarily particularly high. That's 1 win out of 5, whereas G2 are 33% at 3 times played. So not loads to go by in terms of how victorious one team may be over the other, but as with everything, you got to start with the ban phase.
We do love the ban phase on Clubhouse, don't we? And how much it's changed with every time we get a new hard breacher, every time the environment changes slightly, Clubhouse is always affected. So when we got Maverick coming in, well, there's a new way to open walls. When we had, for example, the Hibana buff recently, things have changed a lot. Now, Hibana slipped through that ban phase, as well as Thatcher. So we're looking at a fairly unusual kind of operator ban here, in that, yeah, you might usually see the Maverick, but the fact that both Hibana and Thatcher have gone through, I think the attackers be feeling pretty happy about that.
Yeah, that was the first thing actually that I noted is yesterday we spoke about it a bit in the game between Kovana and Eminem. The fact that Hibana is incredibly powerful right now, particularly on a map like this where you want to be able to be as efficient as possible in opening up the 3 hatches on that ground floor. And with the changes to Hibana, that's even more possible because of your choice of pellet numbers and how much you want to use. With that having slipped through, that gives a significant buff to the attackers, and that's what Citizen from G2 is going to be playing as they set up they get ready to attack onto this basement site.
Well, let's see how Virtus.Pro decide to set up for Church Arsenal, and I'm more interested really in seeing how G2 decide to attack it. They've been through all kinds of reworks of their roles as a team, and it hasn't really certain for a long time where they're gonna settle. And I'm really keen to see how Virtue goes on the buck. Really important operator to bring on this basement attack if you're going for one of those kitchen takes. You open up that kitchen floor, you can flush out the position in Arsenal. But of course G2, it's going to take a while to actually get to that point in the round because of this roam that Virtus.Pro have set up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Virtus.Pro are definitely one of those teams that likes to play quite aggressively, so it doesn't surprise me that they're going to be leaning into that kind of playstyle. It's really well renowned at this point that if you play such a wide roam on the basement site, then that just means there's all the more time and resources having to be spent by the attackers to clear it all out. And then those roamers you do expect to make their way back down. Now this is a really nice bullet hole that's been made from Milan, just so that he can see through the bathroom wall as that jacuzzi wall does get opened, and the attackers come in through that side.
Progress now for G2. What a wall bang from Milan. That's a nice way to start things off, taking down the star Thin himself, Kanto. Milan peels back, shoots a drone, shoots a player through the wall. It's up to G2 to make sure they can prevent the Russians from escaping unpunished.
One thing I find really interesting here is, as you mentioned, this is Virtus.Pro's map pick, and so G2 have chosen to start on the attack. Here's Clubhouse is one of those maps that you associate with being more defender-sided. It leans you into believing that G2 have a lot of confidence, and one nice goal straight onto Pasha there shows you why that may be.
About the time that Virtus.Pro peel back and take their chances on the bomb side. Not overcommitting to that roam now that they'd lost Pasha, who's historically been quite the star here for Virtus.Pro. That said, somewhat eclipsed as of late, with Milan really coming into favor on this team, stepping up massively as the newest member. And Pasha, well, He still has those massive moments, but he misses just as often as he hits these days.
Look how ready Shockwave and Rask are down below the kitchen hatch. Both of whom, well, actually only Rask is holding onto a C4. Shockwave's brought the impacts, which has replaced the shield that Valkyrie can bring. That is so she can try and trick the hatch. Looks like it's not going to be opened just yet. Here those cannons finally start to go off as Virtue looks down below to collect a kill, but he doesn't quite manage it.
That said, hatch now open thanks to 4 pellets from the Hibana. Virtus.Pro still holding safely on the bomb site, once again peeling back. Nice aggressive angle to the bottom of main stairs for Rask, but no C4 to lob it on over. 20 seconds left. This is where we need to see G2 make their move. Flushed out of dummies now is WTG, but he lands a spot on 2 Citizen. Can this C4 deny the plan? See you later, Pengu! It's all Virtue now, and he's shut down, tossed aside without too much trouble. Virtus.Pro, a very nice hold in the final moments.
Great control maintained at the end there, particularly because they still had control of blue, so good positioning that they could come in towards the boxes as that plant attempt was made. And of course that final C4 that you mentioned, really good way to deny that. However, I have to say, you know, I like the fact that G2 did have a lot of focus on that kitchen hatch and ensured that they had the reinforcements required to deal with those players down below. The impact tricking worked the first time, not the second time, so it was still able to be opened. For the most part, I actually quite liked it from both sides. I like the roam that Virtus.Pro went for, but they are going to be skipping out on the next most popular site of CCTV and Cash and heading straight up to gym and bedroom. So whether they will have a similar kind of style here remains to be seen, but given that they've brought a Clash, I'm wondering if they're going to extend using her over towards the east side of the map.
Something we saw a bit of yesterday, in fact, actually. Eminem and Kavana. They did tease out the Clash a couple of times to mixed success. G2 is actually a team somewhat infamous for their shield play. The Clash we've seen from Uno a lot. Couple of players toyed with the idea. Virtus.Pro here, as you said, likely to try and hold on as long as possible to Cash. CCTV top red, and the Clash is great for that because even once G2 starts to peel away the layers of this onion, open up those walls and start to breach, you've got that Clash just standing there giving some information, perhaps enabling your teammates to shoot a couple of drones, maybe even a player if you're lucky. There you go. As we say that, drones are starting to fall. G2 need to make sure that they don't lose that without any kind of follow-up.
Yeah, everything's very well prepared here for them to have that control. They've also opened up part of the soft construction walls, so the line of sight all the way through into Master. It's a nice early kill once again onto Pasha, this star player who has shown up for Virtus.Pro will no longer be a part of this round.
Good start now for G2 as they begin at the moment. I'm not actually sure where the primary push is here for G2 because it certainly ain't over here on CCTV Cash. That's given WTG the freedom to just sit on this CCTV window. Uno may see him, doesn't want to take that fight as of yet. Bit of hard breach would be needed to open the kennels wall and expose that position, but it doesn't seem to be a priority at the moment for either Citizen or Pengu as they've dealt nice and handily with that jacuzzi wall. Citizen may well rotate to assist Uno now.
Yeah, it looks like that's what was going to happen. Virtue collects another kill. He's actually going to open up the construction wall for now as the EMP goes off onto the server, just preparing the pellets to be able to detonate. Go off. I suppose it's a detonation. It looks like G2 are just all over preparing to have these various avenues of ingress. You can tell that WTG is trying to keep an eye on where they might be as he heads back closer towards the site.
Not bad for time, is it? For G2, a whole minute to go. 5 versus 3, good control, but Shockwave in top red has the potential to do some damage. Citizen aware of that position, or at least cautious on the angle at the moment, but not overextending. Can, so a concussion does not affect Shockwave. He's still here, it still has full control of his senses, and a C4 to boot, holding the angle with the SMG-11, and on the other side of the server, Citizen awaits, but Shockwave, playing for time, rotates downstairs. Now it comes down to how G2 can execute.
Oh well, Pengu won't be a part of the execution as WTG secures 2 kills for himself. The Clash paying off. He can't quite get the third. Virtue's really shown up in this round so far, but now we're in a 3 versus 2. Just 2 drones in pocket for Citizen. It's going to take a decent amount of damage, and he will finish things off. G2 taking round number 2 after a pretty well set up and executed attack.
That's exactly it, isn't it? Well set up from the point where they said go. Virtus.Pro really running at the heels. VP dismantled at the start by Virtue, found 2 opening picks, and then the follow-up was just slowly breach these main walls, expose these positions. Virtue, every time I go to say Virtue, I go to say Virtus.Pro at the same time. Ugh. Virtue managed to push in through Logistic and find one more onto WTG, who, yeah, found a nice 2k, but at the end it wasn't enough. And Citizen, very sharp aim on those final 2 kills as well. G2 found 1 for 1. Not too bad, but here I wouldn't be crying yet for Virtus.Pro. Strange to me that they're actually deciding to re-attempt this same bomb site, gym and bedroom, instead of going over to Cash.
Yeah, but look at these slight differences. This time they're not going with the Clash. They've brought along a Bandit, so they have that wall denial. They've also got WTG on the mirror. This is definitely an operator that is synonymous with WTG. I've just immediately got flashbacks of him playing it, particularly on something like Consulate. He is very, very comfortable using mirror. So this is going to give them all that extra information. Maybe he'll put one of the mirror windows on the bathroom wall. That's not a too uncommon place to have it. Sometimes you see it in logistics. Sometimes you'll even see it on the cash wall. There are a number of different options for where you may want to put them. In fact, they've opened up those logistics walls completely, it looks like. But I think the way that G2 were able to open up a lot of the avenues in using the hard breaching gave them so much room to move in. But right now, Virtus.Pro's primary focus is preventing that from happening again.
Bengu gets to work. Not a lot of trouble when you've got EMP on your side. Deal with that mute jammer. Exothermic charge. Deals with the Camel's wall. Previously, this was the Hibana pellets. So G2 have decided, okay, let's change a little bit where we place our utility, where we distribute our hard breach, but that's fine. And Kanto's made much faster control here of, oh my god, how early is this for G2? Complete change of tack. Instead of focusing on Jacuzzi, they're going straight on in here for CCTV.
You got one of the players of Virtus.Pro at the top of red, it looks like, as well. They've sent in a drone and they're flashing out because they know that he's there. Citizen's going to push straight forward and gets the kill. Shockwave the first to go down this time, and Kanto just following up.
Starting to be quite the bloodbath. There's 3 players left on each side. Still Aroma downstairs. Pasha falls back. Pretty critical, though. The players that were taken down, Virtue and Citizen, were the only 2 players who found kills the previous round. Now Virtus.Pro in a decent position, but still some utility left for G2 to breach that Jacuzzi wall. Still 2 EMPs and 1 exothermic, and that's really what matters. But keep in mind, even after they do that, they've got a mirror staring them in the face, and it's the same if they start to push in through construction. So there's a lot of problem solving here on the fly for G2 to do.
Yeah, I really like this that Kanto is droning for Tengu, because it just shows the kind of utility that they are using the Zofia for. She's always been very utility heavy, but Kanto has played very entry in the past. That's definitely his role, and it looks like he's kind of a bit further back now, but prioritizing the utility, and it's making G2 look more coordinated than they have done in some of the series that they've played this year, where they've looked like they're slipping somewhat. Now, they haven't gone for the Jacuzzi walls. It's still electrified. That would still need to be dealt with. Instead, they're turning their attention elsewhere. Kanto is just making sure that freezer clear so that he can try and deal with the mirror window above.
Some creative architecture for Kanto. Enables the push in, and that's the fight won by Uno. EMP not to go forth though. 3v2 on the execute. 15 seconds remain. Pasha feeling the pressure, but he does still have the trusty 416 at his side. That's the diffuser down, but the refrag comes through. Kanto up the main stairs and up into the bomb site. And that's a second successful gym attack for G2.
I really like the use of pacing by G2 in that round. The fact that they were so quick and controlled in the first minute, 30 seconds, however long it took for them to get those original kills, remove the Banshee, and take control of Garage, CCTV, and Cash. But once they got to that point, they knew then it was going to take a bit more to actually move forward. And they took their time to figure out how they were going to approach that, decided they weren't going to rotate around to the Jacuzzi wall. They weren't going to fall into Virtus.Pro's claws, where they had expended their utility to have the electrification, to have the second mirror window. Neon essentially was just a sitting duck, and instead what they did is very methodically made their way through the map. They sent Kanto downstairs, they removed the threat of WTG's cross that he could hold across construction, and then that allowed them to finish things off. And it's really nice to see, because one of the problems that G2 have had this year is sometimes looking a little rushed, looking a little out of sync with one another, and it looks like they have been making waves in improving upon that.
G2 are very much looking like a well-oiled machine at the moment. They know exactly what they're doing. They're working together to do it. And that was particularly on their gym attacks, just very, very clockwork. And we've also seen a lot of good multi-kill rounds. If you keep in mind, like that just then gone past. Kanto had a few nice multi-kills. Previously, Virtue and Citizen as well. So not only are we seeing good teamwork and good progress in terms of getting the steps in the checklist done, but also stepping up for some multi-kills when it matters as well.
Well, this will be the first time the Virtus.Pro are coming to CCTV and Cash, so whether G2 will look just as much of a well-oiled machine this time, we're yet to find out. But once again, we're seeing that very proactive use of the hard breach, not wasting any time getting those walls open, or at least attempting. With the circle wall being opened here by Pengu.
Oh, it's the rush!
There's the move straight in. Uno just deleting Milan.
Uno went deep and he paid dividends for it. Looking for another one though, and that's Pasha. Cool, calm and collected, composed. And he's the last one alive, near abouts, taking down just Rask now, coming upstairs. 2 impact grenades, but not a lot to deal with. Only 2 players to find, however, as Pengu is down, but not out as of yet on the Kennel's balcony. 2 players to find. Rask may well think there's 3. He knows that Buck is downstairs. That's Virtue bringing out. Rask is going to take this fight. A flashbang goes out. That was actually very perfect for Citizen, and that's going to force back that player of Rask on the other side. So much time to play with. So this is really about 2 things. 1, has Rask got what it takes? Can he land these miracle shots? And 2, can G2 make sure they don't let it slip away?
Such a risky place to be because of the size of the hole made by the exothermic charge. Rask narrowly gets some sights through the garage rotate, but doesn't actually catch anyone out. He's got to watch so many angles around himself and no one to back him up. Can he get the kill? Not quite.
Very close now, Rask. They'll eventually spray down G2. A very nice rush, and they finally closed it. Even if it takes some time, they get the job done. And that does put them up in a significant advantage on their attack, no less. Clubhouse 3 in a row.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand now why G2 chose to go to the attacking half first. They are looking really clean on it. And I have to say, one of the players who's really stood out to me so far is Citizen. We already knew that he was a great player. We saw him back on Na'Vi. We've seen his progress in G2. He's always been someone whose names is in people's mouths. However, he just looks incredibly confident, undeterred. And he's playing on Hibana as well. You know, people make jokes about, you know, Hibana entry and things like this, but he's doing it with gusto and he's succeeding.
Yeah, Citizen's always been known as a hotshot player, right? He was headhunted for this team. I remember it said, I can't remember who it was or where it was that I heard this, whether it was a piece of content that G2 did. But the way I remember this going is that, you know, Carlos, obviously G2's CEO, asked, I think it was Pengu, or asked the squad, maybe it was Shaz, you know, who do you want? You know, Fabian's leaving the team. We want you to be a super roster. What do you need? And they said, we want Virtue from Australia, from Fnatic, and we want Citizen from the UK, from Na'Vi. These players were both headhunted for this roster. The original EU super team, as we coined that phrase in the lead up to EUL. And we were disappointed, I admit, that it didn't seem to provide results at the start, but it does look like that this very high caliber of talent on these players is finally starting to pay off.
It's like a rejuvenation. You have to remember too that G2 didn't make it to the November Major, so they've got a point to prove that that was just a slip up. That was a fluke. They absolutely deserve to be on that stage, or I suppose virtual stage in this case, and they want to prove it here at the finals against Virtus.Pro, who have become a more consistent favorite in EU as time has passed.
Especially after G2 lost that August Major. Milan desperately trying to find something, but once again, Virtue finds that pick. Credit to G2. They are chasing down, hunting these roamers. And Virtus.Pro absolutely feeling the pressure right now.
Well, last time this site was played, Pasha was the first one to fall, but he still stands, as we can see him hunting out some of those players. He is not too far from a couple of members of G2, but he will, okay, maybe not on purpose hop down the oil pit. I was going to say rotating back down, but he did look like he was maybe going to climb the ladder once more. Instead, he'll just hold down here towards New Blue, knows that that's likely where Kanto is going to be pushing, and the drones that are set up anyway.
Pasha on the other side. Pasha versus Kanto. Looking for the peak. Kanto has the info. Pasha has his sound dampened. Kanto on the peak and he lands that shot. Great refrag though for Virtus.Pro. They can't seem to stop Pasha always being the first victim, but at least Rask can get one back for it.
Well, I mean, Pasha knew that Kanto was going to be there, so he will have said that in the comms, you know, come, I need someone to be able to refrag me if I don't get this. And Rask was absolutely ready to take that. Now, Shockwave going in for the impact trick once again. This worked the first time in the previous round that they played this, but not the second. So, Citizen did get the kitchen hatch open. It looks like it's going to work. Oh, maybe not.
Credit the ambition here from Virtus.Pro. We'll talk so much about Hibana and how this rework means that you can't really effectively impact trick this hatch. You need to bring so many impacts, which is exactly what Virtus.Pro are doing. Got the Valkyrie and the Malusi, but it's just not going to work. Hibana's got so many pellets, especially when your Malusi goes early. Wait a second, there's no time left. And while this has looked good so far for G2, if the plan can be denied, this might spell death for them. Rask goes for it. The C4 is an airball. He's the last left. And G2 once again run away with the round. Virtue covering in the end a 3K for him.
Such a shame at the end there for Rask as well. He tried to throw out the C4 to deny the plant and it hit the door frame. So you're already minimizing the amount of time you have available. 2 kills get made by the enemy in that time. You don't have very many options at the end for you there. I think one of the points that you hit upon is also incredibly important, and that is that it is not something that Virtus.Pro haven't considered, that you need so many impacts to deal with Hibana. But the issue that they faced at the moment is the fact that you can't... the one player who's carrying impacts is dying. So you can't use all of the ones that you have in pocket or that you brought with you. So it's a very pressurizing situation for Shockwave, who was on the Valkyrie, to try and make that work. At that point, you know that you're really running against a tide. Because he actually had 2 successful impact tricks in that last round. The Citizen still got pellets in pocket. He can still open that up. And at that point, and I suspect prior to that point, Virtus.Pro knew that the real thing they would have to deal with is knowing that G2 will make it down that hatch.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it, right? You're looking at around saying, okay, we're going to commit to bringing 4 impact grenades to try and trick this hatch. Citizen's got 18 pellets. You only need 4 to detonate, and he can shoot them 2 at a time. You would have to impact 9 times to get rid of all 8, I guess, to make sure he can't open that hatch. It's never gonna happen.
Oh. Milan not gonna win out the 1v1. Pengu collects that kill very early. And again, a pretty disappointing loss for Virtus.Pro, as that's the 2nd round that Milan has been their first casualty. I don't know if I didn't see if he was still carrying the electric claws in pocket, but it doesn't look like the server wall is electrified, so that might have just made G2's life incredibly so much easier.
G2 are looking so hot right now, and that spawn peak, failed spawn peak I should say, from Milan certainly just going to make it harder now. Breach on the wall, Kennels open, no rush this time though for Uno, and G2 such hot form at the moment. Now if you remember back during stage 2, G2 had an insane clubhouse game against Na'Vi where they managed a reverse sweep, but that was on defense. They struggled on their attacks. Now they seem to be near flawless on their attacks, but it's not over yet, says WTG. He can find out one player. Uno goes down. No more EMPs, but not necessarily needed at this point.
Still control being maintained of Garage up here by Pasha. It's a really important place for the attackers to take control of. And I'd imagine he knows that the pressure is going to be potentially applied from a couple of angles. He's still aware that there's one player just outside the door. And that's Kanto Raketti. He gets the kill. I was going to mention how Kanto was the one before on the, I believe it was round number 3, who took garage control so quickly. And once again, it looks like that's just going to be repeated.
Downstairs as well proves unsafe for Rask, so he falls back to the bomb site. He can try to retake it, but man, it's just so dangerous at this point. And only 3 players left for VP. Cautious about perhaps Virtue to come down the office hatch. Looks like Virtue's not talking to his teammates at the moment, considering whether it's worth a drone, whether he should just rotate and help his teammates. That's exactly what Rask's going to do. It looks like this may well be the execute in just a mere moment. Kanto in garage, 2 players outside the breach. Shockwave, a C4 primed and ready. The plant going to begin. Shockwave needs to deny this. A spray could do so even. But no, the team kill! That's not what the doctor ordered! And now G2 in a miracle post-plant. That'll easily get cleaned up. A convincing 5-round in a row half. Ends G2 at 1-5 on their attack. An insane start. Let's see if they can keep it up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a sec. Terrifying position to find yourself in as a member of the Russian team at this point, staring down 1-5 on your map pick of Clubhouse going into your attack. This has been G2 all day long.
Locate and defuse bombs.
Well, I'm lost for words. That first half was absolutely terrifying if you're Virtus.Pro. Because now you're on the flip side and you've got to try and make your attack just as, if not more successful than that was. And given how coordinated and together G2 look, I'm not convinced that their defense is going to look any weaker. Just impressive stuff. So many of the problems that we've maybe speculated upon about G2 over the last year, they just seem just miles away.
5 seconds left.
G2 have had some high highs and some low lows since the reformation of this roster.
Locate and defuse a bomb.
But I think it's safe to say that they have not hit the expectation that we had of them. You're talking about multi-time champions, Kanto, Tengu, even Uno being on this roster and taking some serious titles. And then you've got Virtue and Citizen, undoubtedly the best players on their former teams. And yet, you put all those amazing ingredients together and you still don't get a good meal? What is that? Kanto already the opening pick. And on Milon, one of the stars that we look to for Virtus.Pro.
Oh, not just that, it's on the Hibana as well. I mean, that was the most pivotal operator, arguably, for G2's attack. As you mentioned, all 18 of those pellets that you have in pocket, well, Milon has none. That means all of the hard breach requirements are going to be onto WTG. He carries 2 exothermic charges, and you're supposed to be able to get open those hatches. That is not going to happen. Really difficult position there for Virtus.Pro.
Citizen still in an aggressive position. G2 know that this has been their day. They're not afraid to take risks. Just waiting. It's a patience game at this point. Player droning on the other side. And he hears the player directly above. Claymore goes down. No longer safe to open openly climb up that ladder, at least not without an impact to get rid of that Claymore, but surely Citizen knows it's time to back off.
You can see the WTG knows someone is down there, but as you said, he knows he's going to retreat. And in fact, all of G2 are down here, very centered on the site. That means that Virtus.Pro will have to crack open the site in order to get a hold of any of them. And as previously mentioned, that's going to be very difficult when you're lacking the Hibana pellets that were previously available to you.
Let's see what VP can get out of it. No way! Goodbye, hard breach. Pasha tries desperately to get a refrag on the back of it. Eventually secured, but surely there's no way VP can get back in this. No hard breach to their name. A desperate attempt down the main stairs, but it's a gas to meet them and a couple of bullets as well. Shockwave might be able to get rid of that Banshee, but you're going to have to do a whole lot more than that. Otherwise, you'll be staring down match point in 32 seconds. Pasha to push down blue stairs, but there's two players ready and waiting for him. Another nade down through from Rask, but surely not. Surely Uno can stay safe here. G2 can just wait for the onslaught to begin. Virtus.Pro have got to make their move. Coming down blue, one player from the main stairs. It's all on Pasha now, and he doesn't last long. G2 take match points, and only 7 rounds in.
How the hell are we already here? This is absolutely wild and not the start that Virtus.Pro wanted to this series. G2 just hit them, not just in the knees where it hurts, but in the femurs where they can't walk anymore. Absolutely dismantled Virtus.Pro in that last round. And it's going to be really hard on Virtus.Pro's pride as well, not just because of this as a game in its own right, but when we look back to EUL, both Stage 1 and Stage 2, as well as the August Major, G2 have won every single game that they have played against Virtus.Pro. Virtus.Pro are still looking for their first map victory against G2, and it doesn't look like Clubhouse is going to be it.
And if not here on Clubhouse, then where can Virtus.Pro mount their attack against what seems to be an unstoppable G2? This is Virtus.Pro's map pick after all. And quite a return to form for G2, I must say. Virtus.Pro, on the other hand, they've been all-reliable, Mr. Consistent throughout EUL. They were one of the few teams that actually managed to get to both the August and the November Major, not something that G2 themselves can boast. But Virtus.Pro, ever the bridesmaid, never quite the bride at both of those events. Whereas G2, they were one map away from being the champions of the August Major. And ever since then, they were on that downward spiral. They looked terrible. They got smacked about by teams like Secret in Stage 2. But finally, it looks like they found their way back to the top.
They're going to be feeling incredibly confident coming into this next round. As you mentioned, they are on map point already, heading to CCTV and Cash. Instead of a smoke being brought for any kind of denial, they have the Echo. He can provide the shield. He also has those yokais that you saw Virtue looking through. Not only do they provide the information, but do have the potential to deny a plant should Virtus.Pro get that far in the first place.
Citizen on this roam. Oh, player just around the corner, completely unawares. Milon. Tempting fate. Citizen decides not to take the risk, though he might not know it now, but he likely would have found a kill there for free. Is Virtus.Pro even watching that flank? Surely they are. Citizen might not realize, but he's had such a good opportunity now. He thinks he's being hunted, but Virtus.Pro, they're not at all. Shockwave is actually watching that flank, so that's a good decision now for Citizen that he's fallen back.
Just keeping an eye on him. Server wall still unable to be opened as Uno Meister is actively tricking it. That's going to make it much harder for WTG to get it open. Pasha doesn't appear to be nearby. There's the construction wall as well being tricked. Uno is just juggling these two walls. There's also a mute jammer on the server wall as well. That would have to be removed. Down goes the battery again.
Zap.
Goodbye exothermic charge. Just one left in pocket. And no pellets for Milan.
We do have a breach, though, finally on the construction wall. Surely this is just going to get tricked. No, it's a fake. While Virtus.Pro may have one breach open, this is the more important one here on the kennel's wall, and Uno's going to get it, surely. Like, I don't see any way that WTG can make this work. The grenade, actually, plus a shot from Milan, finally gets it done. We have the breach open, 40 seconds left, but there's a rat in the corner. He goes for a peek, and he's shut down. Pasha now, finally, it looks like Virtus.Pro have control, and it all falls to pieces. In an unbelievable, flawless rounds, Virtus.Pro finally start to stem the bleeding.
G2 had it going for them with all of the tricking and preventing the walls from being open, but as soon as the crack could be found in that armor and Virtus.Pro wrench it open a bit, that's when it worked out in their favor. They had players set up in positions where they could catch out those players of G2 from the positions that they were in. I mean, Pasha was the really key one there because he was sat on the server window, not necessarily being watched, and it actually looked like Virtue noticed him just slightly too late. He didn't win the 1v1 gunfight. I was wondering if Uno was maybe going to step slightly out of position, be caught out by Pasha himself. But regardless, the point is, it made G2 kind of surrounded, and then you had players like Rust who could come in at the end, collect those final kills that they needed. And all Virtus.Pro needed to do was to kind of chip away at G2 until they got to the point that they could force themselves in. And that did work in their favor. But G2 are still on match point. Virtus.Pro have a long road ahead. If they're to take this to overtime, they would need to win the next 4 rounds consecutively without error. That's a very, very hard ask, especially considering the fact that G2 will be able to go to church in the next round. So even if they don't take Jim here, they'll be able to go back to the site that they won their first defensive round on and look so clean. And that is, you know, not a great instiller of confidence for Virtus.Pro.
At least for G2, they're not dwelling too much on previous failures. Just quickly move it up. You don't have to try cash again when you can just move over and instead take Jim danger. I like the frost pick here, something we've seen creep in a little bit. She's got a shield, she's got the traps, she's got a great gun, she's got a shotgun. Like, what more could you ask for, really? Is this? And almost falls victim to an early couple taps from the TV window, I believe that was, or from garage even. Virtus.Pro finally do manage to a breach here as they begin to encircle Cash.
Now remember, G2 were exceptionally efficient at taking control of this entire east side when they came to attack here. But they have set themselves up so that that's not going to be so easy for Virtus.Pro. You've got the frost mat at the top of the red stairs. Virtue is still present here in Cash. He had the shield as well at top red. Virtus.Pro will have to invest some utility to eat them through. Kanto actually coming in from behind as well. Immediately catches out Rask. Makes it even harder for the Russian team.
So unfortunate there for Virtus.Pro as they even had information on Kanto with that drone. Kanto unpunished as well. Pasha with the drone ahead. Actually, that drone just replaced that position in lounge. Smart move. Pasha, though, unfortunately not able to secure that kill, that refrag onto the elusive Kanto Raketi. Milan starts to push on. A drone likely to come through. There you go. Into logistic office now. Surely it doesn't miss Pengu in the corner. It actually may well have. Difficult task ahead of VP now.
Pengu just utilizing those black eyes to watch out for anyone who may ingress. It means that he doesn't have to peek out from behind the desk where he has relative safety and a lot of control. Kanto remaining on the roam as well, pretty important, but it'll be Citizen to get the next kill, and in fact there's that final punishment, albeit late, onto Kanto.
Now that there are players dead in the server for Cheeks, Pengu gets off the camera, gets someone else on it. He knows he has the info. He takes down one the second with the 9mm. Pengu owns the logistics office, and now it's all on WTG against 3 G2 players ready and waiting to receive him. no diffuser, surely no hope. G2 has looked so hot here on Virtus.Pro's map, but it's just a matter of consolations for the Thermite. Can he even push in? Can he try to take down Pengu? No chance whatsoever. And G2 take map number 1 in a convincing 7-2 scoreline.
And let's not forget, this was Virtus.Pro's map, which means now they are going to be heading into what G2 have wanted to play and prepared to play. So if this wasn't G2 at their top, if this was not G2's map, then I dread to think what they're going to look like moving forward. But my god, that was a dominating attempt. It wasn't even an attempt because it worked. Absolutely fantastic from G2.
A showcase of absolute splendor from our mixed European and Australian squad. We'll see whether G2 can keep this fire burning onto Virtus.Pro in map number 2 coming up in just a moment.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. What a map 1 in the series. G2 with a very handy 7-2 victory against Virtus.Pro on Clubhouse. We expected it to be a bit closer than this, so let's come together, huddle up, and as we sing Kumbaya, examine the reasons why VP could not perform up to the task, and if it really was that, or G2 just playing even better than expected. Jess, can you shed a bit more light on the happenings of this game from G2's point of view, as you kind of had your finger on the pulse for their victory?
Look, I was listening to some of the casters and they were saying, wow, G2 looking so good and stuff like that. I have to disagree. I actually think VP led them into that victory. They gifted them a lot of free 1v1s. The only standout sort of trade that I saw from VP was on main stairs, and that was a couple of times, and that was really it. For the most part, they let G2 run over the map, run over them. You're looking at these replays from Citizen, for example. He was a big standout fragger on the Habana in multiple rounds in the first few rounds. Uno, for example, there on this replay, there were multiple times that people weren't watching default angles, were not aware of their surroundings. That's very easy to manipulate a team, regardless of your tier, if the other team looks like they have no idea what they're doing, and that's what VP kind of looked like. They looked like they were prepared. They decided to choose a map that, quite frankly, they had a very poor win rate on, and as a result, they're going to continue that loss and that really poor win rate on it. I don't think necessarily this shows that G2 is back in the grand stages of G2 being, you know, a great team that it is, but it's showing a lot of promise, especially mechanically for the squad that we called, you know, superstars when they first joined EUL.
I wouldn't even like turn around to stats and kind of point that towards being historical evidence. This is a completely different game to what we've ever seen from these two before, where G2 look on fire. And I commented mid-match to you guys and said, you know, it's odd. Every single time we're seeing Kanto on screen, he's winning his ones. When was the last time you saw that?
Yeah.
Probably a couple of years ago, back in the heyday of G2. And not to say that he's been terrible lately, but others around him have got better. But in this game, Virtue, when as a kind of unsung hero, 12, 13, 14 kills, the only player in double digits, he had a standout game. But I agree with Jess. This wasn't down to G2 playing like absolute gods. They played well. Let's not take it away from them. But Virtus.Pro could not stop the most basic of things. 2 rushes that you saw in the replays. Every single member of G2 piling through kitchen hatch and not being able to kill a single one. These are like things that you learn in T4, T3 level of play to deny executes like that. And G2 are pulling it off like they're breezing through a scrim partner. It's honestly madness. And if Virtus.Pro don't get this sorted, I will give them one map and say, fine. Yesterday we saw Na'Vi. They got 7-0 on Consulate. It took a bit of time. But after that, they did start to warm into the series. I'll give Virtus.Pro the next map. Otherwise, we are very, very worried about you boys moving forward, so I won't lie.
I mean, G2 definitely known as the team where you yourself said it so many times, Des, over the year in 2020. Like, this is a team you can never count out until the game is over. You never know what can happen. And VP, as Jess said in the beginning, have problems closing out games historically, especially through 2020. So something to look into. Before we kind of move on to map 2, there's one point I want to bring out. Might be just a passing thing, but we saw it yesterday, we saw it today. The Frost specifically as an operator to replace the smoke. Very quickly, can you just explain, Jess, why that switch? What's the reasoning behind it for everybody out there that might not know the intricacies of that pick?
I mean, ever since she's got a shield now and she has the ITA secondary shotgun, it's the one that Mira and Jackal also has. It is not very good for killing unless your name is Sabos, but it is great for site manipulation and destruction. And of course, that's exactly what teams need to do very fast. Sometimes you'll run a mute in conjunction, that'll have the shotgun, or you want to run the mute with the MP5K instead, you don't want to run the shotgun, no problems, that's A-okay. You've got the Frost instead, she's got the shield, she's got multiple sort of denial, area denial of which Frost mats can be. They don't have to be killing machines. They can be area denials on their own. So I think Frost, really great main weapon as well. She's a good operator, and that's why sometimes where smokes are not really going to be used for the player denial, they're not that popular, you can bring an operator like a Frost in.
Yeah.
She'll do the site manipulation instead.
I think Pengu's had enough of being the SMG god for a bit. He wants to change and try his hands at a new weapon, and apparently he's saying, hey guys, Frost kind of does the same thing. I'll give that a whirl and let you know how I get on. And the answer so far? Pretty good, man.
Pretty good. It's a 9mm C1. It does really well. It's super comfortable to use as an SMG, I gotta say. So very well understood from that point of view, aside from also the utility. But that's a quick point aside. Let's talk about map 2, Kafe Dostoyevsky, map that was brought forward by G2 to try to bring VP on it. After performance on map 1, expectations looking at the history of VP. Des, what do you see going down on Kafe?
I mean, again, we can look at the stats all we like, but honestly, I think form is probably the most important thing. And I think what we saw from Virtus.Pro in that last map doesn't spell too well for this one coming into it again, given that it's a G2 map. And again, I'm not always kind of a big proponent of saying, oh, just because a team picked the map, they should be the ones winning it. But G2 are going into this one full of beans and full of confidence. Clubhouse, they've banned away a lot. They don't like that map all that much. They lost it banned it away quite a few times, in stage 2. So I'm just thinking, coming into Kafe, where they're most comfortable in the form that they're in against a team that isn't hyper comfortable on it, are you really going to vouch for Virtus.Pro on this one? And sure, they've won it 2 of the 3 times they've played it, but again, historical evidence is nothing once you start considering current form.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, and I'm going to say just what Sloth said yesterday. I'm going to use Sloth as like my poster boy here and say he said yesterday after the first map that he played, the boys got too confident, they got too cocky, they started playing sloppy. And when you get into the second map with too much confidence on your side, it starts to give a little bit of flavor, a little bit of edge and area to move for the other team. That win rate you're seeing on there, sure, looks better for VP, whatever. Last time these guys went head-to-head on Kafe, it was a pretty minor, win for G2, 7-5 against VP. However, I'm looking back at when VP during the major beat Rogue on Kafe, didn't they smash them 7-1, 7-2?
I mean, Jess, let's not get ahead of
No.
ourselves. That wasn't exactly a hard feat back then.
Back then, I'm not saying now, I'm saying back then, that's still something, that still shows that they've got something going for them on this map. I do agree, through and through, it's a G2 map. When you say Kafe, you go G2. But I'm hoping they don't repeat mistakes on attack that were really problematic for them, so yeah.
Yes.
Since we're close to going in, VP usually run a Goyo on this map, gets counterbanned with the meta shift. Do you think that will stay the same? Is this something G2 will look forward to banning or not quickly?
Probably not. I think because of the kind of like less prominence of Wamar Jaeger, it's not going to be that big a deal. One thing to watch for G2 on this map, because you kind of mentioned them playing into that defense, is drones. Always been my number one criticism on this map is they are not timely. They haven't been great with drones. Na'Vi really bullied them with this. It did go to a draw, but that's what I'm keeping a very close eye on in this match from G2, is droning.
They won't ban it because if VP is going to ban Wamai again, which is statistically what they ban on Kafe, then no way you sort of go somewhere and sit behind it. No way.
So map 3 or not, Jess, yes, no?
No.
God, the
No,
boys
no,
are
no.
not looking good today.
Achu?
Nope. This is it, 2-0 G2.
All right, let's see how it goes. That's the tale from the analyst desk, ladies and gentlemen. It all continues, and we're going to go for a quick trip in snowy Moscow. The Kafe Dostoyevsky. Bring up your books. It's time to go. Gio, Dev, enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milosh. Time to get into this one. See whether G2 can keep up that insane form that they started with on map number 1. We're going over to their map pick, and VP, well, I hope you're ready for it.
It's hell of a momentum to continue, and on the other side of that is hell of a momentum to try and stop for Virtus.Pro. This was, of course, G2's map pick. However, historically, Virtus.Pro actually have a higher win rate. You did see it on the analyst desk. 67% win rate over the last year for Virtus.Pro compared to a 50% win rate for G2. So maybe one might consider that Virtus.Pro has an edge on this map, but G2 picked it. They've got something up their sleeve. We know it, and we saw what happened on Clubhouse, so I don't want to get too confident.
Sometimes all that matters is top form. You can have great strats, you can have great history on a specific map all day long, but if the other team kills you before you win the game, if the other team can dismantle your strategies just because they've got on-point teamwork and they're really feeling it on that day, then sometimes that's all that matters. And Virtus.Pro is a team that does rely on form, that does rely on those star fraggers. Fraggers that we haven't seen show up in the server as of yet. Virtus.Pro are looking to people like Pasha, like Milon, who just have not had the impact that we'd expect to see from them. On contrast, G2 have had star play after star play. We'll see whether that continues here.
Interesting, we're already having very, very different operator bans compared to Clubhouse. Now, naturally, Clubhouse especially is one of those maps where you have quite specific operator bans, but I'm noting especially the Thatcher ban from Virtus.Pro. It was something that G2 brought every single round on their attack and made it work very well. Their swiftness with making hard breaching work is part of the reason that their attacks were so strong. So either Virtus.Pro already wanted to ban Thatcher, or they've noted that from Clubhouse and said, right, this is a big strength, this is a big operator that's working for G2, let's take it away from them and give ourselves that slight advantage.
Historically, Virtus.Pro's most banned operators on Kafe, Thatcher, and Mira to some degree, but also Wamai, tied up there for VP. Now, fortunately for them, all three of those are off the table, as is the Ying, which to me is the real misnomer, the real unusual one here in this this operator veto phase. And I think it's a good play though from G2 if they know that WTG from Virtus.Pro tends to favor that Ying and perhaps can create some source of disruption to G2's defense, especially with the Wamai banned out. Perhaps that is some good foresight from G2.
One thing that I am thinking, and especially just looking at what G2 have picked, is historically, and I'm talking especially in the last year, G2 here on Kafe have really, really liked to play shields. We've seen there was that infamous game where they played with a blitz. Was it against Na'Vi? I want to say it was a little while ago, but they just did these blitz rushes onto reading sites. Pengu behind the shield on that one as well. This time he's going for the Monty. Some teams do like to ban Monty out here on Kafe, but as we just discussed, Virtus.Pro went for Thatcher instead. That's one of their favorites. But it does mean that G2 have those options open to them, and they're not going to waste any time in getting them going.
Two can play at that game though. Milan once again on this clash. We'll see whether that can perhaps be the force to stop G2, the waves crashing against the shores. Sometimes the clash is exactly what you need to counter an aggressive Montaigne. G2 start, as we typically see on Kafe, from the top floor, from these two hatches. At the moment just passively looking for any aggression. Lots of strong positions that Virtus.Pro can hold here. G2's got to make sure that they clear it effectively.
Ash is just about to be droned out. There he is, forced out of position. and he'll be looking to jump down into pillars. One of the important things when taking this site is you want to be sure that you're taking control of that top floor. It is incredibly important to clear out any players who may be up there, but also have control of the vertical angles that can be held down through particularly the cocktail floor, which you can use to support a plant and have the upper hand in any kind of retake situation.
Did manage to take a glimpse of that black eye camera, which will help later in the round, no doubt, into bar. First pick, though, is Kanto. And look at that, a staring contest between the Clash
Shield on
and
shield.
the Monsi. Mulan starts to push aggressively, takes a bit of damage to that nade. Fortunately, is not victim as of yet to that shield guard break. And so, not exposed. ADS chews up that second grenade now, and Shockwave, though, does fall back. Pasha as well, with Milon and Rusk holding onto bar on the top floor as Pengu starts to push on down. He's vulnerable to C4s, though, and that black eye watching very keenly to enable one.
Oh, they're not relenting just yet. Shockwave the first one to fall, and Pasha's going to be bleeding out as well, so already Virtus.Pro significantly weakened. You mentioned being vulnerable to C4s, but there's actually only one on side, and even before Shockwave died, he'd used his C4,
Boom!
but there we go! Only one in pocket, but you might as well make it work. Uno Meister going straight into the grave.
And here comes the Clash. Virtue desperately trying to find a kill here to cover the angle of the teammate peeking him, but it's not likely to work.
Drop the bomb diffuser.
Couple shots towards the Clash for good measure, but Virtue's got a tall order ahead of him. So low on HP, and the taser surely to finish him off. Milon sprays through, and that's Virtus.Pro with the first defense round here to open up Kafe.
I really like the fact that Virtus.Pro were very unrelenting in terms of how they wanted to maintain control of Cocktail particularly. It made it very hard for G2 to push through and take that top floor for themselves. That original nade that didn't bring Milon down did get rid of a Banshee, so in theory that could have opened up the avenue a little bit more, not slowed them down if they'd have used the white corridor to push forward, but they didn't really have many options to push forward when you had the risks, like the players who were, there was a player who was on white stairs, you still had the players who were in Cocktail, and that C4 down
Defenders,
below,
protect
meaning
your
the
bombs
backstore
from being
freezer
defused by
area
attackers.
was basically impossible to try and take. G2 basically found themselves fighting against a folly that came to be throughout the middle of the map. They didn't even have the option to get down to the site. So a really nice defense there from Virtus.Pro, and a great way to start on this map after everything that happened in Clubhouse. However, on Clubhouse, they also did take the first round. So if the pattern repeats itself, then you would expect G2 to get this next one. But we never,
10 seconds left.
It's always nice to get the first round, but you've got to get a lot more than that. Sadly, that was the real struggle for VP on Clubhouse. I will say, definitely a change of pace. Seeing Virtus.Pro look as good as they did in that first round just past, like that Clash. There's no answer from G2 for that. Constantly keeping up that pressure, constantly forcing G2 to dodge and dive. Now let's see how G2 can manage a kitchen cooking attack. Will they do a map clear? It looks like they're potentially shaping up for it. Bit of a split at the moment. It takes a long time to clear the entire cafe from the top floor down, but it's so effective if you can manage it and get all that vertical play, open up the floor of mining, fireplace, and train, and start to really pressure those players on the bomb site. But Kanto's in an aggressive position here, and Uno's already opened up with the first pick.
Really good start from G2. Citizen securing a kill as well. I was going to say, bringing Citizen on the IQ will be really helpful to get rid of those black eyes. And Kanto's about to find himself in a standoff, which he wins with a headshot. And so very early, a G2 seeing dominance on this round, leaving just Pasha and Rask, the last two, to try and
Attackers have
hold the
located a
fort.
bomb.
So difficult now for these two players. Citizen on the other side of that, G8 in hands. And he just flushes Pasha straight into the waiting arms of Uno. One player left, and he can find a consolation frag, but won't survive much longer than that. G2, a very, very convincing opening round for themselves here on Kafe as they take Kitchen without any trouble whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, what did I say about the pattern repeating itself? I'm just so good. No, it was
an absolute prophet. You are.
Oh, well, I know what I am.
Yeah, you know, every village has like that mad old lady who can somehow see the future.
All right, hold on a second. Just go back to the last sentence, leave it at that.
All right, sorry, you're a prophet, Gio. Please continue.
Thank you. You're welcome. No, I mean, G2 did look incredibly decisive that round. As we mentioned at the start, it looked like maybe they would go for a top-down clear, but a lot of what happened was down on the bottom floor, especially where, you know, Kanto was situated down in coat check. And so they didn't rely on that so much or need to. And one of the things that I was wondering is, quite a contrast to the previous round, Virtus.Pro had bought 4 C4s rather than just the 2, and that maybe a top-down clear was going to be more hot-footed from G2, as they would have to mind those potential threats. But they didn't even get that far that they could use them. G2 didn't give them the opportunity. They never put themselves in that position of danger, and instead just cleared cleared Virtus.Pro up incredibly quickly. So that was a really effective attack, obviously, from G2. And now as we move on to the tertiary site of Bar and Cocktail, which is more similar in its defensive style to Reading, which we saw Virtus.Pro win on that first round. However, G2 may have, you know, figured out adaptations in their head by this point that would allow them to overcome a lot of the problems that they had before.
Well, Bar and Cocktail may be the tertiary choice here for Virtus.Pro. It is the most popular across the European League in Stage 2. And also the most defender-sided in terms of success rate. 62% of rounds played EUL on this bomb site were won by the defense. That's for Stage 2 only. So there is a solid chance here that VP can find this. But G2, they've got that Monty, and it's so good for clearing out these positions, such as what we see now from Pasha in shot.
And this was kind of a similar position to where he took before. And, maybe he's getting ready to jump down, although I believe last time he was on Valkyrie when we spoke about this. So he's just going to use the open minibar to keep an eye in through to Cigar. Clearly the clash is not being played anymore, and instead we have those more anchor positions like the smoke, like the Maestro instead.
Citizen looking to take some ground downstairs and ensure no one is looking for a cheeky C4 through the piano floor and denying G2's entry. Drones as well go forth. With Virtue on the south rappel, there's a lot of pressure onto VP, but Pasha finds the first pick of the round, the Monty, and a second. 1 HP to his name, but he's been worth his weight in gold. Kanto looking to move in and start to put some pressure back on VP, but at the moment they're just running away with it.
Well, Kanto has to try and pick up the diffuser, presumably, as he's the closest. That means he has to cross over the doorway into Bar, where he could be seen straight from Cigar, or straight... Well, from Bar into Cigar. He's not even going to have the option to make it all the way there. A shockwave down below catches him out. And suddenly it's G2 who are on the other foot. Now in the 2 versus 5 scenario, the Virtus.Pro will remember all too well from the last round.
Finally, G2 get themselves on the scoreboard though. Uno taking down Shockwave on the flank downstairs, but 15 seconds. Not a lot of hope here for Virtue and Uno looking to push in through Bar. Couple of pre-fires down. Virtue on the Cocktail balcony rappel, a difficult position to enter, and it's just him left. The swing in, is it going to come or is he going to save the KD? Nah, Milon says not happening, mate. And Virtus.Pro do manage to come back and take the lead here on Kafe.
Really, that original kill onto Pengu was so valuable for Virtus.Pro, because not only have you gotten rid of the epicenter of this push, Pengu on the Monty, but you've also forced the diffuser to be dropped in a position that is incredibly difficult to recover when you consider how Virtus.Pro had themselves positioned. All those eyes that they had onto Cigar that would have to be crossed in order for a player from G2 to jump down the hatch and make it over there. I mean, we saw it happen, what, 3 times? There was a kill immediately after Pengu, both of which had been done by Pasha, and then Kanto, who was tentatively trying to creep around and secure himself some relative safety to try and grab it, also didn't have that option as Shockwave down below caught him too. So a really, really good, valuable opening kill, and I think that was just around the purely exemplified just what an effect something like that can have.
Talked about Pasha a lot on map 1, about how he's a star highlight player for Virtus.Pro, but he's also hot and cold. He's also
well, no, Hong Kong said Dog Zero.
Aha! I'm the one meant to be making the bad jokes, Gio. Come on. Pasha is a player that... Yeah, I had to do it. I respect it. Pasha, though, while he can find up some multi-kills sometime that do spiral avalanche lead into those successful rounds, we also see him just dying early with no benefit whatsoever, and that was the curse on Clubhouse. Fortunately, though, he's back in the positive KD, thanks to that 2K. And if he can start to reel with this confidence, reel it in and start to hone it into a truly sharpened tool, then perhaps he can weaponize it and be a more consistent aid to his team.
I find it incredibly interesting that VP have decided to go back down to Kitchen when Reading is open for them now. Reading, they did successfully defend. Kitchen, they did not. G2 had a really clean attack onto Kitchen, and yet Virtus.Pro have decided to take the risk. What that tells me is that Virtus.Pro are not feeling too deterred. Really nice opening kill from Rask straight onto Pengu once again as the first death, except this time with a C4.
And with that, Virtus.Pro likely know that there's no Monty on the G2 side, as that is Pengu who usually plays that. In this case, G2 actually teased out the Monty, but Uno's 6th pick off of it onto that Maverick, who now remains as the only hard breacher for G2 remaining after Pengu's demise. A good advantage early on from VP as they continue to have some presence within the map. On the middle floor now, Kanto just looking to start putting this pressure on, but there's 3 players, 1 in Fireplace, 1 in Train, and 1 in the Laundry for him to deal with. Virtue starts things off. Uno looking desperately for this player, but he doesn't realize he's just hanging out in the Laundry with another in Fireplace to support. G2 do not have the info, and Milon manages a fadeaway shot onto the Maverick. 3 players left now for G2. VP looking so hot.
Virtus.Pro really said, you ain't having the Fireplace hatch. I'm sorry, but you're not. And that means that G2, with just about a minute remaining, have got to try and take a different way around. You can see that Citizen, hanging out in VIP, was just making sure his angles were safe before whipping out his gadget to get rid of some of the electronic devices that are nearby, but G2 don't have a ton of time to play with, and they are at the disadvantage with just 3 players on the team. There are still C4s lying in the pockets of Virtus.Pro as well, something they didn't get to use on the last Kitchen defense, but may have that opportunity a bit more this time. Virtue takes some damage, and you can notice how these players of G2 aren't that close to each other for the added support. That could also give Virtus.Pro some extra advantage.
Time ticking away, G2 trying to get this vertical play going, but they've realized it's just too late for it. Now the push in through the bakery door, but Rask shuts down Kanto without any trouble whatsoever. Rask good for another one, and WTG to close that round. A very convincing one for Virtus.Pro, well and truly back in the game and up 3-1.
Looking very clean and comfortable, and evidently the choice to return to Kitchen despite their devastating loss on it in round 2 was the right one. They knew the mistakes they'd made, they knew the changes that they wanted to add to the defense, and they implemented them. And I suppose it also helped that that G2 played their attacks slightly differently, not bringing a Monty this time. And Virtus.Pro have looked incredibly resolute, not just on that round, but in a number of the rounds, about how and where it is they want to prioritize their defensive positioning. I mentioned that round, how they were very keen to hold on to that first floor.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Middle floor, I suppose I should say. to ensure that the fireplace hatch couldn't be taken. It meant that G2 had to play more laterally, and by that point they'd already been quite dissipated because of the loss of 2 of their players. And with one of them being Pengu on the Hibana, it makes it harder to be forced into a situation where you may have to open up something like the prep wall, the bakery wall, or the north kitchen wall if you're just left with the Maverick. So a very difficult position for G2, and that was all forced by Virtus.Pro being quite tactical with where they positioned themselves and those particular hotspots of defense.
Add to that the fact that G2 just did not have any success trying to find picks onto the players on side through the floor. It was Virtue and Kanto both tried that, and I mean, Virtue didn't get anything out of it aside from a few points of damage onto himself to endanger his own livelihood. But let's see how G2 can perhaps find something a bit better now. It's a complete rework from what we saw last time they tried to attack reading Fireplace, which resulted in a very convincing Virtus.Pro win thanks to that clash. Guess what? The clash is gone. Milan switched onto the Legion. We also have the Maestro in place of that Valkyrie from last time. So a bit of a switch up on both lineups, attack and defense, meaning this is essentially a fresh round, though it may be the same bomb site we've seen before.
Yeah, I'm actually very interested to see how this is going to play out. I want to know if Virtus.Pro are keen to hold on to Cocktail quite as much as they did before, or if they will relent a bit more. They obviously have the hatch open so that they can drop down and rotate when they desire to. But back in round number 1, they didn't ever really get to that point where they felt the need to be pushed back. The boom mines from Milan are obviously going to act as a deterrent in and of themselves, and that'll make it harder for G2 to push forward. But it's not quite the same as just straight up having that shield. You do have Shockwave and WTG with the C4s as well. There's one thing that managed to prevent G2 from moving successfully in through the bar backstore, but it looks like they're getting ready to make that commute now.
Uno got the perfect operator to start to pressure here on Tarps. C4 does miss it. That was targeted towards the Maverick, but now he's got to be careful about those vertical holes, and that's actually what does lead him to his eventual demise. G2 trying to get some kind of pressure on that Tarps wall, and thanks to the Maverick, the jam is gone, so the Hibana pellets can go off. Virtue also doing something that actually has a play here. Through pillars, barely sneaking. Does he have a yellow ping? Does he have some information? He can spray down WTG through the wall. And this suddenly puts G2 back in the game. Pengu as well adding onto it. Can Milan manage the duel? He does. He may have just given his team another chance, but not if Kanto has anything to say about it. Pengu as well. It's all on Shockwave. A 1 versus 3 and for the retake. 30 seconds left. It's all on G2 to make sure this doesn't go wrong.
And suddenly it feels like the tables are very much turned. As you saw, even Pasha, as he launched himself over the stairs to try desperately to get back. But Pengu, he's going in for the plant. And Shockwave doesn't exactly know where. He's trying to peek in through the drone hole. He can't quite catch the feet. He knows kind of where the diffuser is as he's reloading, but he manages to get the kill despite the fact that he very nearly couldn't have. He's got to push on forward. Maybe be careful if anyone is above and use what information he has, which I suspect is incredibly limited. Pengu's not going to be budging very far from the diffuser, and Shockwave just has to creep forward.
Eventually, Pengu lands the shot. Shockwave gave it a pretty good crack there, but G2 managed to pull that one out of just about nowhere. They lost the opening engagement, but they managed to overwhelm the bomb site at the end of it. A great play from Citizen on the IQ, pushing up through pillars. He really changed that pace of the round for G2 and for everyone else to hang on as well. Pengu, I believe, found a 3 or 4K by the end of that round. G2 finally closed this drought that they've had. 2 rounds in a row, they've struggled to find just about anything and get back into it.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of see what G2 were going for, which at first looked like it didn't work. And what I'm talking about here is the fact that they knew that there was the risk of the backstore floor being blown up. They had it happen to them before. So what do? They send the Maverick in. That was Uno. And he opens a tiny hole in the wall. That sends the information to Pasha, who was just nearby at Lumber, that there is someone in there. Immediately, Uno backs into Freezer, where the floor is indestructible. You can't send a C4 and expect it to blow up that floor. So he is relatively safe. He has impunity in that area. Shockwave immediately sends up his C4 as he receives the information from Pasha, and that C4 is wasted. Uno doesn't get killed by that. But Uno does get killed shortly afterwards. And up until that moment, I was thinking, oh, G2, this is smart, you have this. But when Uno wasn't refragged, that's when I started to worry, until we saw what Citizen was doing. They had this information about where those members of Virtus.Pro down below were, and even though it was late, even though it wasn't an immediate refrag, they could come back and get their revenge and suddenly swarm and overwhelm Virtus.Pro, which put them in the position where there was only one player left at the end. It was very, very good. Very patient, playing kind of the long con for G2 in that round, and I really like the way they went about it.
C4 doesn't find anything. Just look at the way that Kanto moves. His mechanics, renowned as one of the best players in the game. Mechanically incredibly talented. I remember when Kanto was known as that under 18 Finn that was almost old enough for Pro League, and eventually he did join, and ever since then, I mean, really, that's history. He's back on form at the moment, at least it seems so. Hasn't quite had the impact perhaps he would have liked this map as of yet. Oh, that's quite the shot there for Pasha, threading the needle and sit down the young Finn.
Yeah, I really like the way Kanto moves as his body falls lifelessly to the ground outside, says Pasha.
Pasha's a bit jealous, I guess, and I mean, rightly so. I really should be giving him credit pumping up his tires because he's been pumping G2's senseless. Shockwave now looking for the duel, and Pasha for a third, the triple kill. This Jaeger is unstoppable, and he gets back inside safely somehow. G2 fall flat on their faces thanks to this insane play from Pasha.
What are you on about Pasha being jealous of Kanto? Kanto should be jealous of him after that 3K. And don't forget, G2 have still got to recover the diffuser as well as just having two of their players on the board. There are various drones that are out and about. You can see those dead members still have some. That's why you can actually see their little drone symbol. If they were both dead, you wouldn't be able to see that. As well as Citizen also having both of his live too. So information can still be fed through to them, but when you're going up against 5 players is incredibly tall task, especially when you've only got about 30 seconds remaining.
Pasha waiting on the white stairs rather. Citizen's got to make his move. Takes down that default camera, but gonna have to take down a lot more than that. Not much control to work with. His teammate Virtue on the roof, gonna have to vault the skylight. Citizen starting to push on in near the default plan spot. These open bars expose his position. A long angle, caught in 2 angles as well. He falls, and as Virtue drops the hatch, that signals a flawless round for VP. Absolutely uncontested.
They've pushed Clubhouse out of sight, out of mind at this point. They've come back with a vengeance. However, is the vengeance going to continue now that they're on attack? We're going to have a short break, and then we'll find out.
Can you hear me right now? Half number 2 here on Kafe Dostoyevsky. G2's map pick. Now, Virtus.Pro, they got to choose to start on defense, and well, they did well with it. 4 rounds, including rounding it out with a flawless, but it's not over yet. G2, if they win Kafe, they take the series and head to that grand final. Virtus.Pro do not want to let that happen. Pasha does not want to let that happen.
They definitely look like they plan to claw themselves back into this series, and I think it's safe to say that they've already done that. This is a fight and a half. But as we've spoken a decent amount about attack versus defense and where those advantages lie, it's fair to assume that G2 may have a bit more of a springboard on this half. So they could collect those 2 necessary rounds to even things out pretty quickly if Virtus.Pro's attack does not sit up to par. Now, they're going for something slightly different to what G2 did in relying somewhat more on that flank watch. They've brought along a Nomad, which you often see get banned out on maps like this. It should give them more control over their staircases and prevent G2 from making a lot of rotations, which, if Clubhouse is anything to go by, could be something that G2 would like to have that control of on their defense.
Top floor barn, Cocktail, WTG, and Rusk both outside the Pillars door, but the Aussie on the Mozzie, ready to receive. He takes down the first player. Might not realize there's a second, but if I'm that second player outside, I'd think twice about looking to go in through Pillars with such a heavy presence from G2 downstairs.
Well, looks like Kanto is not too far away. Rusk is just outside, carrying the diffuser. This is, of course, a top floor defense, so there are still members of G2 up on that top floor. Shockwave will be placing the second of his air jabs.
You know, I never realized it's about called air jabs because they jab the air.
I just thought it was kind of like an edgy name.
Maybe. Well, Pash has certainly been pretty edgy this game, and he said, Dev, I was personally offended that you spent all that time gassing up Kanto, so I'm just going to make sure every round from now, he's my first victim.
I'd say that's a perfectly reasonable line of thinking. But look at Citizen. He's getting very close to the door. I was wondering if maybe he was going to take the risk to run out and catch Pasha, but Pasha now inside and Citizen moving deeper into the building as well. Virtue's playing it very patiently, but you can tell that G2 still have players on all floors. Virtue, the patience did not pay off. Pasha came straight for him, and Shockwave adding to the kill count as well, leaves just 2 players on the side of G2.
Pash is hungry for more, but Citizen on for the flank, finds 2. Pasha is still alive. You can't count him out.
Attackers dropped in.
He's watching for Citizen, but now it's just Pasha left. This is going to have to be a 4K to clutch. And now it's a 1 versus 1. Pengu, the old guard, one of the most accomplished players in the entire of Rainbow Six Esports, but Pasha with the 4K, the wall bang to shut out Pengu. Virtus.Pro on top.
Oh, Pasha is just better, at least in this map he certainly is. A player who has received so much accolade in the EUL 2020 season, kicking things off as arguably the best player on Virtus.Pro. He had a bit of a dip at some part of stage 2, but looks like he's right on top form again. And if you didn't catch it in the chat just then, Pengu did give a nice little oof, which I suppose is a pretty big compliment. When it's coming from someone like that, he knows how much Pasha really showed up there, and that was quite a kill.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. I didn't even get to finish my sentence before Pasha says, look, stop gassing up other players. I want to take these fights. Talk about me, he says. And I will. Sitting there on 10 kills and 4 deaths. What is that, 2.5 KD? 2.2 KD? Something like that. I don't know. Something ridiculous. Even if I can't do maths on broadcast, Pasha can do some simple maths. It's called, what's 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1? That's a 4K.
10 seconds left.
And man's just unstoppable.
Definitely something to be feared and revered, as I think G2 maybe gonna have to re-establish in their own minds how much respect they pay to Virtus.Pro, because after Clubhouse, I can totally understand how maybe any team would start to let that respect level slip somewhat if you feel like you dominated them to such an extent. But after what's happening so far here on Kafe Dostoyevsky, I don't think that necessarily still stands true. G2 still sitting on just 2 rounds. They need to start bringing that tally up if they're to prevent Virtus.Pro from making it onto match point, which they will if they win this one.
Respect the drip here, Kanto, with the G2 416 carbine skin and outfit as well for Jaeger. You can pick that up yourself in-game if you'd like. Support G2, support all of our R6 esports teams. All right, got a drone, says Virtue. I'm sure he said that in real life as soon as that happened. It's mandatory for every Aussie to actually make the same exclamations as Mozzie. Oh, that's quite a jump. And he gets a bit of info. Is he going to go for another jump? What is that? Milon for the cover, but at least Pasha is out of the server. G2 going to be taking a sigh of relief at that. But Citizen ain't satisfied as of yet. He's looking for another one. Is he going to go for this?
Oh no, it looks like he's moving back. Milon was actually getting ready as well. He's got the suspicion that that bakery door might not be safe, and you can tell it's living rent-free in his head. But Citizen, his attention is being paid to the brown stairs right now. He's moving far away, and if anything, that means that Milon can't get on with the job that he had at hand.
It's all well and good to have roamers downstairs, but they need to get back to the bomb site to support every now and then. That's exactly what Citizen's done. It's going to be a 4v4 on the site now. Virtus.Pro starting to make some progress, but time has ticked away. Impact Grenade going to enable some nice new angles for G2 to use. Standing on the bars, you can get really deep and long angles through that long hallway and onto the default plant spots. 45 seconds, time's ticking away.
Virtus.Pro need to be pushing forward if they are to take this round. Still 4 members of G2 are standing. They have those impacts still in pocket. Uno throws one out, gives some line of sight down below, and he can tell that there's someone not too far away. Citizen killing Shockwave as well. VP, they've got to make their move.
That flashbang enabled Milon to just Raquel straight on inside. He's in such a good position, but Uno sprays him on down with the Elder. Refrag through, 2 versus 2. Ras to make this plan happen, but Citizen's in the perfect position to deny. It's on WTG now, but there's just about no hope left against 2 players. He can desperately walk forward, but there's nothing but the clock to battle him. And G2 find their first defense.
Not letting Virtus.Pro land on map point just yet. They want to keep themselves in this map somewhat longer. And don't forget, of course, this is a best of 3. If G2 win this map, then they will be winning this semi-final and move forward into the finals tomorrow. So there is a decent amount riding on this. And if you can do it on 2 maps, why would you want to go to 3? G2 looking a lot stronger in that last round. Although I can't say that Virtus.Pro looked bad per se. It just looks like both teams have hit the gas.
Yeah, not looking to pump the brakes anytime soon.
No.
Reading though, I love this bomb site. Honestly, this is my favorite bomb site on the map by far. I just love the fact that there's so many different ways that you can defend reading. And attacking reading, you also have some options. Let's have a look at what perhaps Virtus.Pro bringing to the table. The same operator lineup we've seen. One size fits all is pretty common for most teams to just bring the same lineup of 5 ops on attack, more or less, time after time, attacking the same map.
10 seconds to go.
Pretty well rounded. I like the fact that they've got a lot of soft breach on the table as well. Breaching charges on the Ash and the Sledge and Buck together. I'm really going to be looking at that Buck to open up some of this floor of the bar, looking downstairs onto that bomb site. The Buck in particular, because he's less vulnerable to the C4s, that no doubt G2 will try and throw up to meet him.
No one to be seen so far on the Black Eye. That's gonna give G2 the information that Virtus.Pro are really centered around the north side of the map for the most part. You can catch one player on the rappel, but other than that, everyone else is elsewhere. That means Kanto can just get ready with placing the others. More information for later. I do agree with you. I like the focus on the soft breach for Virtus.Pro. It should expedite their aims to be opening up the floor. Make that as fast as possible. You can see Pash is going to get droned in as he begins to make the first move on entry as Ash. I want to see how much this roam from G2 is going to affect them, especially when you have something like a Goyo with those Vulcan shields out and about. Those will have to be dealt with as well.
Does Virtue have info? I didn't see a black eye placed, and I don't see any pest hacked drones in Piano either. Pasha allowed to create rotations both into backstore and into bathroom. full bang for buck out of that utility as well. The first Vulcan shield gone. No Jaeger on the table, traded out for the Valkyrie. Pasha's done some good work on the top floor here. And still alive, which is really important here. He's been the hot player for VP, and if G2 can take him out, they'll definitely feel more comfortable.
Paint, well, there he goes. I was going to say, Pengu will be lacking that same free refuge that he had before behind the shield. Taken straight out as the first kill. There's Mute off the board, and it means there's a lower presence over in Cocktail as well. Kanto is still peeking around towards Pixel, where he knows Virtus.Pro will be coming from, while Uno is just ready in Cocktail itself, just on the edge of the hatch, prepared to jump down whenever he should need to. You can see Virtus.Pro taking a lot of refuge in the bathroom as they begin to push on up, and Shockwave's going to be the next one to be punished. Rask tries, but Kanto's ready to jump out.
3v2 now as we settle. Virtus.Pro have this top floor control, and it comes down to G2. Can they deny this plant or retake? VP looking for players on the bomb side, but G2 not willing to take part. Virtus.Pro primed in a strong position to drop, but time's ticking away. The clock will be G2's best friend to make this work. Pasha is so aware. Surely there's an audio cue, but no, he rotates off. Virtue knows C4. Citizen has one impact, and he's in the prime position, the player to deny this plant. But does he have the position? Where's the plant going down? Citizen has to find this kill, and can he deny? Pasha might be good, but he's not good enough to clutch this. And G2 manage a second defense in a row.
If only that smoke were just a couple of meters closer to the door, maybe Citizen wouldn't have been able to find the kill in the time required to prevent the plant going down. And at the very least, the post-plant situation would have been able to be forced. However, that was not the situation that they were in. And his desire to push on forward won G2 that round. And now they are just one round away from evening things out. And this was the big question at the start of the half, was are G2 going to be able to rein back in that disparity in the scoreline by being on defense? And so far, it looks like they're having an easier time than they did on the attack.
Which is what you'd expect, really, right? I think most teams here would... I mean, you'd expect to at least get 3 on your defense. 4 is probably par for the course here. But... Virtus.Pro, yeah, they had 4 defense. I think the thing that really had us applauding Virtus.Pro in the first half wasn't necessarily the fact that they got those 4 defense rounds, but the fact that they looked so good in those 4 defense rounds. And let's be honest, that was a bit of a surprise after watching Clubhouse, where Virtus.Pro really didn't look like they showed up in the server. They had 1 flawless round, but they only got 2 across the whole map. So I don't really think that we expected Virtus.Pro to come out so strong, even though they started on the defense. While they've got that early lead, and they had that great clutch attack round at the start of this half, they're going to have to keep things going, and they're going to have to make sure that G2 can't start to get their heads back into the game, because if they do, and if Citizen can keep making plays like that, this is just going to become more and more difficult for Virtus.Pro.
Yeah, big disadvantage very early on. It means that WTG won't be able to help open up the floors above the site. That will have to be Milan, who is relied upon for that. You also have to bear in mind as well that there's only 1 hard breach, so if Rask gets downed as well, then the option to open up either the hatch or the walls also removed. So it's quite precarious when you're limited with options for things like that, and G2 are looking a lot cleaner on their defense than they were on the attack. Still 1 C4 in pocket as well, makes it more risky to be above the site, but when you're attacking onto kitchen, that's really the way you have to go. Nice black eye placement as well. Something the Virtus.Pro will maybe struggle a little more to find, given that they're not sporting an IQ like G2 were on their attack.
That one in Fireplace is particularly cheeky.
It's very jammy, yeah.
I think it is actually somehow lodged inside the wooden plank, so it was actually peering through that. Very, very cheeky there from Citizen. Let's see whether Virtus.Pro can, as they've started to take map control, start to actually open up the floor. G2 really struggled to find picks onto these anchors, even with this vertical control. And in this 5-on-5, that is really the key now for VP. Can they start to lead this man advantage? Can they start to corral these defenders?
Explosions going off all around Pasha as he sends in the breach charge down below to remove some of that utility. They do have the hatch open, so they should be able to make their move down at some point, but still 5 members of G2 standing. That's a very big army to face when you finally jump down into the site. And not even Penguin VIP has been cleared out. There's really been no focus on Garage at all. That's quite a risk.
And as this is a 5v5, as you said, G2 have so much control of that ground floor. Milon, though, does find the first pick. Citizen getting a bit too aggressive near the red stairs. 25 seconds left. VP finally have that numbers advantage. They're going to drop through this hatch, but surely the angle's being washed. No, he doesn't see through the smoke, so he just has to pre-fire. Doesn't land even a lick of damage. 15 seconds, but still there's an evil eye on the site. That'll give G2 the info. Rask starts to push on through. Pasha has to hold this, but surely can this work? Pegu finds one, the impact. Can he swing the planter? It doesn't matter because Kanto's gotten the job done. And G2, they hold on another one. That's 3 defenses in a row.
Well, I mean, you could definitely tell that VP was somewhat precautious and tentative about how they wanted to go about that. Even when they first put the smoke down the hatch to try and cut off Pengu's line of sight, there was no immediate action onto that. And you mentioned there was still an evil eye standing. They knew that, but time is running out. You only have so many options, in a situation like that. We saw the way that Pasha was positioned, that once they actually jumped down, he immediately was trying to hold that line of sight into VIP because they knew they hadn't cleared it. But Pengu was lying prone right next to the freezer wall. He could just jump straight up, and he did. He got a kill from that. Basically, the whole thing was working against VP because they had not picked anyone off from G2. They had not cleared out those necessary positions, and even though they had to try and make an attempt onto the site, they would have known that it was not in their favor.
Well, now numbers on the scoreboard looking very even. 5 apiece. Whoever wins this round takes match point. Now for G2, that would put them on series point, hence 1 round off of joining BDS in the grand final tomorrow. The inaugural grand final for the EU League. Pretty big thing, really, to be honest. It's not just Pro League anymore. It's not just the previous iterations, this brand new program. And it's a battle for who will be king of that hill. Starts with this round. Virtus.Pro need to stay alive. If they lose this round, then it's a question of, at best, getting overtime and pushing us to map 3. Certainly a lot of work to be done. Can Virtus.Pro stop this tempo that G2 have started to initiate?
Nothing more heartbreaking for Virtus.Pro than knowing that they had such a lead on G2 and could have forced this into a map number 3, and to have G2 just come straight in and sweep it out of their hands. Don't forget, of course, that both of these teams have qualified for the 6 Invitationals, so there will still be things in their strat book that they are not showing because there is a much bigger competition just on the horizon, and yet still we are seeing this kind of fervent display of dominance, especially from G2.
Wasn't that long ago we were saying the reverse when Virtus.Pro had the lead, but times change quite quickly. Kanto's got a good angle, but he's been droned out. Aggressive position under the skylight. Very difficult to flush out a player from here. Even when you know he's there, Kanto still wins the fight. Pasha has maybe had his time in the limelight, and Kanto just wants to get some back. And he's pushed down, cut off downstairs, but he is managing to escape just as we speak. Virtus.Pro on the back foot here.
And this is where you'd really want the air jabs from Shockwave to be playing their part and cut Kanto off even more, but it'll be Milon who's cut off even more. Virtue, his free reign down below, pays off as the C4 goes off in Milon's face, and this Rask who's going to be following up, dying. This could be it for G2 to finally make it onto match point as they sit at a 4 versus 2, make that 4 versus 1. make that 4 versus none, as Citizen sends G2 straight into match point.
So close they can taste it. G2 have not been on form as of late. They missed out on the November Major, but now they are 1 round off of joining BDS in the inaugural EUL Grand Final tomorrow. G2 so close. They've so much to prove. They were the top dogs, not just in Europe, but in the whole damn world. The most accomplished team in Rainbow Six history, but they've turned a new leaf. They lost their infamous captain Barbian, and this new roster with the headhunted Virtue and Citizen just has not looked the same, just has not proven themselves. What better chance than to win EUL? It starts here. You've got to take this round. You've got to get it done in 2 maps and just take down Virtus.Pro.
G2 just looks so freaking comfortable, dude. And, you know, we've spoken about how there have been concerns surrounding G2 over the course of the last season just because of them not necessarily playing to the expectations that people have had of them. But genuinely, I don't think I can look at this game right now and point to a player on this roster and say, this person isn't performing today. This person is the weak link today. For any team, will always be speculation as to who is being the weak link of any team at any one point. And G2 have had their fair share of those kinds of discussions. But right now, I challenge you to turn around and say this person isn't showing up, because only you can.
It's quite the contrast, really, between these two teams. If Pasha hadn't gone massive in round number 7, the first of their attacking half, and found that 4K 1v2 clutch, then this game would already be over. We'd be looking at a 7-4 score for G2. And Pasha, along with perhaps some other players and some other big moments, Rask has found quite a few kills, then Virtus.Pro really wouldn't be performing. And as you say, it's the opposite on G2. While yes, we've got a significant score lead on players like Citizen, and while we do have a negative KD on 3 of these G2 players, they've been doing exactly what they need to. They've been supporting each other. And Penguin and Uno have been the enablers of the playmakers of the other 3.
You can tell that whatever is going on in their communications, it's really tight, it's really solid, it's really flowing well. It's something that's not being impeded by stress or arguments or just any kind of communication breakdown that players may experience. And it's looking really clean. Kanto once again positioned here in bar, ready to try and catch out someone nice and early, but he's retreated somewhat. He did get a drone, I think. But he's still holding onto the angle through into Cigar. Oh, not anymore, he's not.
There's a drop. Hello there, Milan. Finds Cancer Raketti. But, ooh, fantastic shot onto the C4 there, and Virtus.Pro begin to turn things around. Got to take out that default camera. Pengu looking for a C4, but it's just a bait. And he takes down Rask with the shotgun. 2v5 now becomes a 2 versus 4. Uno on the top floor, likely to get droned. That's a missed drone. No way. This could spell death for VP if they don't realize Uno's still here. He can't land enough shots, and now they know for sure. He drops downstairs, Pengu shut down, and now Virtus.Pro have everything they need to take us to overtime.
Milan is taking matters into his own hands. I think he got a 4K in that round, saying absolutely not, you are taking this map. And as you say, pushing things into overtime. Virtus.Pro still want their claws in this game.
Milan really turned it up just then. Everything from hitting go on the skylight, jumping down, finding the first pick, peeking on a Cigar for the second, and then tidying things up at the ends. I talked about it being the Pasha show, Rask to some degree, but Milan certainly has kept his team in it as well. Excellent entry fragging with the G8. Now overtime puts G2 on the defense in the advantageous position. 8 defense rounds won thus far this map versus 4 from attack. So this is going to favor G2. Virtus.Pro cannot accept losing more attack rounds. They've got to nail them.
If they can keep up the power that they just exhibited in that last round, then maybe we could go all the way, but I mean, you're right. This definitely favors G2. That's not a truism that we can avoid or dance around. But Virtus.Pro know that they have what it takes. And the thing is, and it's a point that we've alluded to already,
10 seconds to go.
a lot of the big rounds from Virtus.Pro come from these huge bursts from one player in particular, whether that's Pasha, whether it's Milan, whether it's Rusk. You need to be sure that you can achieve the same success when there isn't one playmaker, when there isn't one person who's getting all of the kills. That doesn't mean that only that person is doing all the work, absolutely not. There's so much that we don't see, so much communication, so much coordination, strategy, decision-making that goes in behind the scenes, but you can't just rely on the fact that one guy is going to get 4 kills in a round. You have to be consistent on the rounds where that doesn't happen. And that's what we need to see from Virtus.Pro here in overtime if they're to take it all the way and push it into that third map.
And if you want a stat to back up that point, the only rounds VP's won on attack so far this map, a player's had a 4K. But they do start off strong. Milan, continuing his form from last round, takes down Virtue on the roam. Now all of G2 resides on the ground floor. Virtus.Pro have map control, if only they knew. Started to drone it out. A couple of pre-fires. Uno looking aggressive, takes down a drone and backs on out.
You mentioned Milan, who got that first kill. His induction into this team is a huge reason why they have the playstyle they do. He replaced the Mission, who had a very slow, hard support playstyle for Virtus.Pro. But Milan is just very pugnacious, he's very bellicose, he's willing to fight. And he is also willing to get going, opening up these floors, trying to see down below, maybe stun some players out, maybe remove some utility using the lifeline. He's got all of his charges in that available to him. And he doesn't look like he's willing to slow down.
How much can he do in the vertical game? Finds Kanto, he's second on the round. He's on track for another 4K. Citizen desperately trying to contest these holes. Fortunately, G2 are extending Bakery, giving him some more room to breathe, some more space. Pengu as well in VIP, ready for a retake, which it may well come down to. That's how G2 won this last time. Virtus.Pro ready, they've got a 5v3 advantage. It's only a matter of time before they execute.
Time, ticking down. Citizens carrying goo mines, but other than that, there isn't any utility that G2 can throw out. There's an air jab, just stunning Pengu. And they will be aware of his location. A trade coming between Pasha and Citizen. That narrows that advantage, and actually Unomeister, finally the last one standing. Rusk finishes him off. And Virtus.Pro, despite being in the disadvantage on that round, they take it.
And they take us all the way to match point here on Kafe for the first time. So pivotally, they won that on the attacking side. They were put on the back foot. G2 got defense on overtime. Far and large, the most favored side in this map so far. But VP said, I don't care. I'm going to take it on the attack anyway. Now G2 is well and truly on the back foot. Not only they're staring down match point, but they've got to do it on attack, just like VP did.
Big, big round. Especially given how much of a mess Virtus.Pro's last attack onto Kitchen was back on round 10. It really wasn't the nicest thing to watch if you're a Virtus.Pro fan. But the fact they've now got their one round up, all they have to do is win this defense. They took 4 of their defenses. It was reading bar, kitchen bar. So every single site that they visited, they won a defense on. So they've decided to come to bar. Makes sense, that was the site that they won a defense twice. G2, we made this joke yesterday, but they've got to remember how to attack since it's been so long.
10 seconds remaining.
I don't know which way I expect this to swing, but I'm actually, I think, leaning towards VP.
Attacker's objective is to locate a bomb.
I definitely think they're in the advantage right now, having defense. But while you say it's been a long time since G2 was attacking, so has it been a long time since VP were defending. Both of the times that we saw VP win this bomb site was on the back of massive multi-kills from Pasha. And there's the opening for Uno. Ras goes down, Pasha looking to contest, pushed into a corner. Uno not able to punish it at the end of the day. Out of bullets with the M4, got a switch over. Pasha survives to go and put down his ADSs and fight another day.
So now a 5 versus 4. Uno getting away with his life. Virtus.Pro still somewhat spread out. We've got Shockwave positioned over in Cigar. He's actually positioned for any drones that maybe drop down the red hatch. We'll come up the stairs. You don't want to get too overzealous in moving forward, because that's how you get caught out. You can't afford to do that. But not having that Kaid for support will definitely be felt. Shockwave's looking to watch his back as well.
C4 might work out, but no. A dodge from the G2 player on Repel. Oof. Was that the breaching ran actually landed on Shockwave's foot, doing a lot of damage there. Kanso looking to find that kill, confirm it through the drone hole, but Shockwave's moved on off. A change of pace here for G2, you can tell. Trying to make sure not to let anything go wrong. The SMG-11 spray doesn't land its target, the G8 neither, and Shockwave going downstairs, spotted on the drone, but still not secured, not confirmed as of yet. Both of these players still dancing around each other. Milon finds one, and G2 back on the front foot. They springboard off that, but they've still got Pasha to deal with.
Do they know where he is? They're trying to be tentative. They are at least suspecting that someone is there, if not having droned him out already. There's the first kill for Pasha, but he doesn't know there's a second. He drops down the hatch before he can be killed, but just with a sliver of HP. He's got to try and rotate up the white stairs and rejoin the rest of his team.
Uno looking to push on through, doesn't really have a good way to get in bar here. Asking his teammate to enable a rotation. Nade to come in through Pixel. Time's ticking away. Uno does find a kill with that nade out of nowhere. 3v2, and it looks like G2 may well have this. WTG taking so much damage. Citizen! He steps up for the final 2 kills. We're going all the way to the 15th round.
What an insane round from G2. It felt like a constant back and forth. Some mind games a little bit. Some parts were slow, some parts incredibly fast. And now, once again, G2 sit in that, what we have called advantaged round, but both of these teams have just won their attacking rounds in overtime. So maybe we should stop referring to it as that. Either way, overtime match point, both of these teams. If Virtus.Pro wins, we go to map number 3, and that is Consulate. If G2 wins, they take the series, they go forward into the finals tomorrow. A lot riding for both of these teams, and I don't think anyone expected Kafe Dostoyevsky to get this close.
Certainly not me. I'll tell you that much for damn sure. I didn't think that after map 1, VP would be able to come back after such a deficit on their own map pick, but they've brought the fire here on Kafe and given G2 a run for their money. But neither of these teams are happy to just sit down and let things subside. They both turned it up massively on their attacks in overtime, as we said, the unfavored side. And I agree with you. How much longer can we really say that when these teams subvert our expectations? This could go either way. It's a bar defense for G2. Now, during their defensive half, this worked out pretty well for them. They won it twice, but they lost it once. That was on the back of the 4K from Pasha, and I would never discount him from doing the same again.
I think it's good that G2 have changed which site they wanted to come to. It at least gives them the opportunity to try something different, and for Virtus.Pro to not get that whiff of confidence that they would otherwise for returning to a site that they had just won. So far, all is quiet.
Very similar setup as of yet for G2, leaning into their roamers once again, with which they found mixed success, as has Cantor Raketti. The carrier rocket certainly has not been carrying G2, but may need to step it up here. Such a pivotal position, holding on to Piano. And a position that really relies on that intense mechanical skill. Perhaps the G2 skin can give him some kind of power to duel these enemies. We'll have to see.
In fact, it's one of those positions that's kind of changed the most in the last few months, as previously that's where you would put a lot of your defensive utility, shields, ADSs, Wamai discs, anything that would have to be soaked up by the attackers, and except this time he's mostly just there by himself. You can hear the ADS clicking away right by him, but other than that, he's just a free man. Now he can see the spots that have been opened. He takes some damage as he tries to retreat, but to the relative safety to be by his teammates. That does, however, leave a lot of space open for the attackers to take.
Piano clear now. G2 dialing it down, playing fairly passive at the minute. Virtus.Pro looking for an aggressive push. This hacked drone from Mozzie is giving so much info, and a yellow ping as well. Could we potentially see a C4 from Virtue if he's roaming down below? And that's exactly what happens! Call and you shall receive. Milon goes down, the player who stepped it up for VP, who they've relied upon after so many of these rounds. He is down.
Big loss for Virtus.Pro, as Milon has been so influential in some of the later rounds, and now they sit at the man disadvantage, knowing full well what they have to lose. They're going to have to move forward. There's the smoke. They try and cut off the line of sight, and Virtue is the next one to fall.
Pengu desperately trying to duel the recall on the SMG-11, but Citizen finds one Rust, trying to force down this plan, but it's all on WTG out of nowhere. G2, the dynasty may be dead, but there's a chance at rebirth if they can get this done. G2 to the inaugural European League Grand Final.
Not the final round that Virtus.Pro wanted, but absolutely the redemption that G2 needed. Having faced criticism, having faced doubt throughout the final stage of the EU League, and today they looked strong. And I think that tomorrow they will definitely stand up pretty well in those grand finals.
Absolutely a massive performance from G2 today. Back and on form, outperforming our expectations, dealing with Virtus.Pro. The first map pretty handily. The second, they were certainly given a run for their money, as they will tomorrow against BDS. But remember that BDS struggled to get to that grand final as well over Na'Vi. G2, though, will be in that final tomorrow against BDS. Don't go anywhere, though. We've got another promotion match, and we've got to break that one down, so stay with us.